Thank you so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting on the approach to a case of acute chemical injury. Okay, so ocular chemical injury constitute around 11.5 to 22% of all the ocular injuries, and most commonly in our country, they are seen around festivals like Holi and Diwali. So the chemical agents that cause injury to the eye include alkalis and acids, of which alkali cause 60% of the acute chemical injuries, and more commonly they are seen in young males. Injury can occur at a workplace or at home, and the most common chemical that leads to injury includes lime or tuna, and that contains calcium hydroxide. So of acid, sulfuric acid is the most common agent causing trauma to the eye and is present in car batteries, fertilizers, explosives, dyes. And of alkalis, as we already discussed, calcium hydroxide is the most common agent causing trauma, and it's present in the plaster, cement, and whitewash, which are often used at home. Now, the pathogenesis of chemical injury, acids usually cause coagulation of the protein, and that limits the further penetration, and therefore the damage to the eye is less with acids compared to alkali, which saponifies the cell membrane lipids, and that leads to rapid and deep penetration into the ocular structures, and also damage to the anterior segment, including the ciliary body, occurs in cases with alkali injury. The clinical features, other than the involvement of the ocular adnexa, where it can lead to lid burns in the lid and lid edema and charring of the lashes, in the conjunctiva we can see there is congestion, limbal blanching, epithelial defect, and impacted particles, especially in the fornices. In the cornea, there can be epithelial defects, stromal haze, and melting. As you can see in the images on the right, in the top we can see there is stromal haze with limbal blanching and conjunctival congestion. And the second image with the fluorescent stain, we can see that there is corneal epithelial defect as well as conjunctival epithelial defect. And the bottom image is showing corneal melting because of chemical injury, and it has led to stromal thinning. So other than involvement of the conjunctiva and cornea, as we already discussed, the alkalis can penetrate deeper in deeper ocular structures and can lead to severe inflammation in the eye in the form of uveitis, and also lead to raised intraocular pressures. Now, there are different phases of chemical injury. It can be immediate phase, acute phase, early reparative phase, and the late reparative phase. And the clinical features vary in the different phases. In the immediate phase, patients can present with epithelial defect and IOP rise. In acute phase, which lasts up to 1 week, we can see in grade 1 and grade 2 injuries, we can have epithelial regeneration, vascularization of the cornea, and stromal clearing, which was initially there with the patient presenting with stromal haze. While in grade 3 and grade 4 injuries, the epithelial defects may persist, and there may be stromal ulcerations and retrocorneal membrane formation. In the early reparative phase, which lasts from first week to third week, there is continuous healing in mild injuries, whereas in severe injuries, there is progression to corneal scarring. The late reparative phase extends beyond 3 weeks, and in grade 1 to 2, we have minimal complications, whereas in grade 3-4, complications can be severe in the form of corneal opacity, limbal stem cell deficiency, entropion, lag of thalamus, cataract, and glaucoma. So assessment of chemical injury in the acute phase when the patient presents to you is essential, and its immediate urgent management is essential to prevent these long-term complications that we have discussed. So when the patient presents to you, assessment of the visual acuity, intraocular pressure, and pupil assessment, slit lamp examination to grade the ocular injury and decide the management should be done, and the epithelial defect, both corneal and conjunctival, and limbal blanching or the limbal involvement should be quantified and documented, and double eversion of the lids should be done to look for impacted particles, which should be immediately removed. Now, there are various grading systems for chemical injury, that is the Hughes, the Roper Hall, and the Duas classification. While the Hughes classification and the Roper Hall classification primarily concentrated on the involvement of the cornea, Harminder Singh Dua came with the new concept of predominant importance of conjunctival involvement and the limbus involvement that will ultimately prognosticate the outcome in the patients of chemical injury. Therefore, the Duas classification divided the ocular injury with chemicals into grade 1 to 6 based on the involvement of the limbus in the form of clockers and the conjunctival involvement in percentage involvement. So the first image is showing, first image on the top left is showing DUAS grade 2, where we can see up to 3 clock hours of the limbus is involved. And the next image is showing grade 4 injury, where up to 6 clock hours of the limbus is involved, and up to 60% of the corneal epithelial is involved. And DUAS grade 6 is the last image, where you can see that the complete cornea is taking up the stain, and 12 clock hours all the entire limbus is involved. That is 12 clock hours of the limbus is involved in this case. So the immediate phase management remains common to all the cases, whether it is grade 1, 2, or 3, grade 1 or grade 6. That is, we need to remove the offending agent, and that is done with the help of irrigation. So a pH check with the help of a litmus paper is done at baseline, and following which irrigation of the ocular surface is done for minimum of 30 minutes with irrigating fluid for 1 to 3 liters of fluid. And a pH check is done every 15 to 20 minutes till neutralization is achieved. And any impacted particle, as we already discussed in the furnaces, need to be removed. A modern lens, if available, can be used for giving the ocular wash in these patients. The irrigating solutions can be that is available to you can be used in the form of normal saline, Ringer lactate, balanced salt solution. However, a Sidroth eye wash and a Diphoterin wash is better, but is usually not available at all places, and hence a normal saline and Ringer lactate can be used in these situations. The acute phase management, the medical management of these patients include promotion of re-epithelialization with the help of artificial tears, and artificial tears in the form of CMC, sodium hyaluronate, also plays a role in epithelial healing, and growth factors in the form of fibronectin and epidermal growth factor, if available, can be used. Now, to support the repair and to minimize the ulceration, ascorbate eye drops and vitamin C play a role, where it helps in collagen maturation, and tetracycline and citrate eye drops can be used to minimize the progression of ulceration and collagen, because it inhibits the collagenase activity. Now, to decrease the inflammation is important, and for this, corticosteroid, progestational steroids, and non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs can be used. However, corticosteroid is the most commonly used drug to reduce inflammation. Adjuvant therapy in the form of topical antibiotic to prevent secondary infections, cycloplegic for pain relief, and anti-glaucoma medication can be used in case the intraocular pressure is raised. Now, biological fluids are now being discussed a lot in the form of autologous serum, umbilical cord serum, and amniotic membrane suspensions, and autologous platelet-rich plasma, all of which contain growth factors that promote the healing process. Now, the topical steroids act as a double-edged sword and used in the initial 10 days after should be used in the initial 10 days after injury. However, they should be cautiously used, as they also hinder the epithelial healing process. But it should essentially be used for the first 1 week, because it reduces the inflammatory cell infiltration, which acts as a source of proteolytic enzyme, and that causes corneal ulceration. To stop this corneal ulceration, steroids are a must in the immediate phase. Now, amniotic membrane transplant reduces inflammation and promotes early epithelialization. It acts as a barrier, a mechanical barrier to prevent further trauma to the corneal surface, and also provides various growth factors that helps in the epithelialization and healing process. There are various types of amniotic membrane. It can be a cryopreserved amniotic membrane, or a freshly prepared AMG, or a Procara. Procara is basically it has a symblepharon ring which a cryopreserved amniotic membrane is attached. It can be placed on the with the help of a fibrin glue or suture fixated. Tenoplasty can be done in cases where the severe patients who are presenting with severe ocular burns, and it provides as an alternate vascular supply to the ocular surface that helps in healing. To summarize, we need to understand this algorithm for management of acute ocular chemical burns. Yeah, emergency management involves examination and removal of the particulate matter and irrigation for 30 minutes and debridement of the necrotic tissue. Grade 1 and grade 2, as we already discussed, artificial tears, steroid eye drops, cycloplegic, moxifloxacin, antibiotic, timolol eye drops, and acetazolamide for IOP control are essential. In grade 3 and grade 4 injuries, wherein more than 6 clock hours or 6 clock hours of your limbus is involved, standard therapy, and additional to that, sodium ascorbate eye drops and citrate eye drops 6 times a day, vitamin C, doxycycline, and eye drop umbilical umbilical cord serum or autologous serum, if available, can be added to it. An amniotic membrane graft maximally helps grade 3 and grade 4 ocular burns and leads to good outcomes. In grade 5 and grade 6, in addition to the medical therapy discussed for grade 3 and 4, tenoplasty may be performed. However, the outcomes, despite of the best medical and surgical management in grade 5 and grade 6 burns, remains suboptimal, and poor outcomes and poor visual prognosis is usually seen in these patients. In any patient with impending perforation or a perforated ulcer, a tissue adhesive may be used if the perforation size is less than 3 mm, and a lamellar or full thickness keratoplasty is needed in case the perforation is larger than that. Now, there are a lot of long-term complications that these patients can have, and the management of each complication has to be dealt with in a specialized fashion. Thank you. With that, I'll conclude my slides.